Welcome to the Wellness on Tap podcast with your host, Dr. Debs Eastwood.
We're rolling. Marvellous. So today I have the huge privilege of sitting opposite Rich Morley, and what a story this guy has, and what a massive, massive input he will offer into the world of health, and does offer on a regular basis into the world of health. So I would like to introduce my fabulous guest for today.
Well, thank you very much, Debbie. It's nice to be here in sunny Doncaster.
You are very welcome, my darling.
Thank you.
So I've been looking forward to talking to you about your story for quite a while.
All right.
I know that we've known each other a year or two now, and I'm absolutely certain that I know parts of your story, but I'm also equally certain that I don't know all of it. So I'd like to know a little bit more, if that's all right with you.
Yeah,
Why? Why are you doing what you're doing now, today?
Oh, there's a question. I'll have to rewind somewhat then. So I was trained to be a filmmaker, but if I rewind a little bit further back from that, I had a very terrible time when I was at school. I ended up at the worst school in the country. I didn't really fit in there. I was supposed to go to a much better school, and everything fell apart when my family business fell apart. And I ended up at the worst school in the country, as voted twice. So we were surrounded by a lot of council estates and a lot of people who I didn't fit in with. And this was in the 80s when there was a lot more violence about and things like that. So I was bullied quite heinously whilst at school, which led me to dropping out a fair bit and not going to school so much. And I didn't enjoy the experience.
Unsurprisingly.
No, and even though I'm quite super bright, generally I ended up with a GCSE grade 3 in drama out of all of it. I got a degree later on and stuff, but
just wasn't your environment.
No. So by the time I left, I got to college, I was quite happy and starting to enjoy life more. And unfortunately, one day I was walking down the street when I was like 16, 17 on a lovely summer's day, and I just came to a dead stop. I'm like, well, why have I stopped? Why? I feel like all the energy, like an Energizer bunny that's just had the battery pulled out of his back. And I was like, well, that's weird. And then I started to notice more pain I was getting in my hands and in my shoulders and in my neck. And I didn't know what the hell was going on. So I went to the doctors and they couldn't explain it to me. So I did a variety of tests for a number of years. And I was enjoying life, and I went through college and I was training up and going to go to university. And I finally got a diagnosis when I went to film school that I had fibromyalgia.
Ah, okay.
Now, when you get it when you're younger, it hurts and affects you much more than it can do with people who generally get it in middle age. And in my research, I found out that generally it's post-traumatic stress. And it's from all the beatings I got and all the abuse and all of the other weird things that occurred. So I thought, wow, I've been diagnosed. That's great. They can fix me. And I saw a really nice consultant, and he said, come back in a month, because they hadn't diagnosed me at that point. And I came back and they just offered me antidepressants to supposedly raise my pain threshold and painkillers. And the painkillers didn't work and the antidepressants didn't help at all. They just spaced me out and made me feel even worse. So I gave up on all of that for a while. I still continued to live my life, but by the time I was in my last year at university, my health was getting worse and worse. And again, as I say, I was still having a good time, but I couldn't do half the things I wanted to. And eventually I had to do all my exams a year later than everyone else. I had to have a scribe to come to write because my hands were so stiff. And I graduated, but I couldn't go into the film industry like I'd wanted. So I did this and that and bits of work here and there, but my health kept getting in the way. And eventually, it got so bad, the company I was working for, I was given short-term medical retirement and told I couldn't work for some time, which was really shocking.
I guess you were in your early 20s then?
A little later by that point.
Wow.
And I was essentially told, you're disabled, get used to it. I talked to a support group because I'd finally found one. And they said, well, if you can't do things you could do before, then you are disabled, get used to it. And I classed myself like that. So I tried everything I could to fix my health. I tried Reiki, I tried swimming, I tried bike riding, I tried acupuncture, hypnosis, lots of things, nothing ever worked. And I really felt I'd end up in a wheelchair or something like that. My legs would collapse under me when I was going up and down stairs. My body was stiff for the first 9 hours of a day. I'd wake up like hundreds of times in the night because you have microwakes, so I'd never got any deep restorative sleep. And I was in agony, and as you probably know, the pain moves around the body, so you can never get used to it. I had brain fog, headaches, everything, all the symptoms. And I just about resigned myself to that was it. So I was drinking heavily for the pain, living on sickness benefits, going to bed at 8 o'clock in the morning because there's no point going to bed anyway. And I'd just about given up. And my friend Maxine, she said, hey, why don't you try Tai Chi? Now, when I was a kid, I was always the world's least coordinated person. And throughout my illness, I was incredibly clumsy, or even more so. I had no control over my body whatsoever. But I loved reading martial arts magazines. I loved watching the films and the like. So I remember there's a bit more to Tai Chi than old people moving around slowly, which is what the conception of it is in the West. Whereas real Tai Chi is actually the highest level of martial art, spiritual art, and health art in the world. And I'll get onto that in a moment. So Maxine, unfortunately, the class in Wakefield was at 3, while 5 on a Saturday, which is a bad time for most people to turn up. So after about 4 weeks of her not coming around to go with me, I dragged my ass there by myself, dragged myself up 3 flights of stairs and took part in a 2-hour class. I had to sit down a lot.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what was going on. But quite a funny story, actually. When I got in there and rocked up, there was a Chinese dude there. So I went up and went, hi, I'm Richard, pleased to meet you. Tried to shake hands with him, and it was all a bit weird. And I didn't know if I should be bowing or whatever. And then about 5 minutes, he seemed very weirded out. I'm like, this teacher's a bit off. And then this white guy came in called Colin, who was actually the teacher. The other guy was a chef. It's like, that's why. Anyway, he was crap at Tai Chi and gave up about 3 weeks later. And unfortunately, Colin was like one of the highest level teachers in the country who'd studied with authentic Chinese masters. And he and his wife were vice presidents of a Tai Chi union for Great Britain. So they're generally as good as it gets in our country. So when I left, I felt about half a minute, maybe 2 minutes. I felt much better than I had in years as I left. So I resolved to go back the next week.
So that was enough, just that short period of feeling better?
Yeah, I mean, I'd go to bed for 24 hours afterwards.
Wow.
Yeah, so I persevered. I couldn't memorize the Tai Chi forms because of a brain fog. And we had 2 living rooms, so I got a friend to photocopy all the pictures. I had to put them around the wall so I could copy them, and I persevered. And I tested myself out. My posture was broken. I was in agony. I couldn't even sit up in a chair without leaning back for more than 30 seconds. I just slump. So I practiced a little bit at a time, 2 minutes here, 2 minutes there, building up and building up. And after a couple of years, I shattered my collarbone jumping off a 10-foot drop-off in some woods on a mountain bike. So I could do all the things that I'd never been able to do all of a sudden. And I'd fixed myself.
Okay.
I was working for 10 hours a day, often training that hard, and I fixed myself.
Can we break that down a little bit?
Sure.
So we've gone from, I think the most fascinating bit of the journey is where you said just for a minute or a minute and a half after the class, and that was enough for you, which creates the picture in my mind of how shit you must have been feeling if that amount of benefit made it worthwhile going to all that considerable effort to go and do it again.
Yes,
so did you find that time expanded the better you got, and the sort of levels of pain and tiredness decreased proportionally, or was it a bumpy journey? I'm really intrigued to know.
Oh, it was a terribly bumpy journey, but I was started to feel better. So I'd leave the class on a Saturday, and eventually I was feeling better for half an hour. I had enough time to go do some shopping and stuff before I felt pretty crappy again. And then I joined another Tai Chi class thinking that, I'll join this Tai Chi class, I'll get double better, double quick. Unfortunately, that was more like a cult and was actually totally made up type of Tai Chi, which didn't help me at all.
Okay. So you got out of that?
Yes, once I started to understand. Well, the teacher told me my chi shone out and how good I was at it. And as a Leslie's coordinated person and a certified cripple, I knew he was lying. So I got out of there, and later on I found out it had been totally made up. So yeah, I'd get the glimmerings of feeling good. And then after persevering, I'd start to feel better at home. My sleep started to improve. My mental state, I was incredibly depressed. I was really down after all those years. Because by that time, by the time I took up Tai Chi, I'd had fibro for 15 years. And it had only got worse. So yeah. So it just got better and better. And as I say, eventually I found myself doing all the, in a few years, doing all the extreme sports. I never did power kiting and all sorts of things, mountain boarding. And I just stuck with it. And then I decided, I'd love to go back into the film industry. I loved film. But I decided that I wanted to help people. And the best way for me to do it was train to be a Tai Chi teacher and share what I'd found, which is not, again, what most people understand it to be. And that's how I found myself. So I trained with my teachers for 6.5 years till I qualified to be an advanced level instructor. And I set out into the world to share Tai Chi with the world. And that's what I did for quite a long time. Helped all sorts of people and did all sorts of things with Tai Chi.
Was that in-person classes that you were teaching?
Yes. But I found it a little restrictive in that most people who came to me were much older and I could only do so much to help them. And then they couldn't do all of the stuff which would lead to things being better. But everyone finds benefit from Tai Chi, There's a pretty crappy joke about it actually there. What's the similarity between bad Tai Chi and bad sex?
Oh, go on, tell me.
Everyone feels good afterwards.
Okay.
So I set off to teach authentic Tai Chi. Then I started, and I had never been interested in the martial arts side of it, but I had a knack for it all of a sudden. I got my coordination back that I'd never had. Nowadays, I'm fully ambidextrous. And started taking part in competitions, pushing hands competitions, throwing people about and stuff. And then one day I beat my teacher. I'm like, what the fuck's happened?
That's amazing.
Yeah, totally.
That must have been a complete mind-blowing moment.
Yes.
For both of you.
Oh, yeah, yes, he didn't appreciate it. He was a serious martial artist. He'd been training for a lot of years. He didn't appreciate it at all. But then I started traveling around, studying with other people, going to America a lot, training with people over there and trying to find the best people to understand more. At the same time, I'd been studying with Colin's wife, and they both had a different approach to Tai Chi, so I wouldn't have got as far as I had if I'd just studied with him.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And I managed, the Chinese call it yuan fan or fate, to get to this, and I truly feel I'm fated to get to where I've got to. So I was lucky enough to, if I rewind slightly and tell you a little bit about what Tai Chi is for a moment.
Yeah, please do. Because like many people, I guess, I have this concept and I have taken part in these classes that run out of gyms where it's a lot of generally older people. I think I was the youngest one there, doing nice, gentle movements.
Yes.
And that's what you see in the media as well, isn't it?
Certainly.
But even at that level, I understood there was more mysticism, and that's as deep as my knowledge got into it. So please, enlighten us.
All right. So a guy called Yang Lu Chan rocked up in Beijing in the 1850s with a completely new martial art. It's informed by the Taoists' internal energetic practices. So the Taoists have been looking inside the human body and understanding what goes on in there. So they created various practices for longevity, because Taoists want to stay in the world as long as possible to do as much good work in the world as they can and be as effective as possible. So the wandering Taoists ended up in Chen village and taught a man called Cheng Chang Sing, who was a rich merchant who everybody used to laugh at because he was no good at martial arts. Zhang Fa taught him the secrets, and all of a sudden he could beat everyone. And Yang Lu Chan was his indentured servant at the time, and because he he liked him very much. He taught him and wouldn't teach anyone else. And it turns out that Yang Lu Chan was a martial arts genius, and he created all of Yang style out of that. So when he rocked up in Beijing, he beat everybody. All the high hands, as they say, of China would go to Beijing. And eventually the emperor heard about this and invited him to come see him. And then he beat all the emperor's bodyguards. So Yang Lu Chan and his son Yang Banhao were hired to teach the imperial princes and the Yellow Banner Brigade, which were the bodyguards of the Chinese royal family at the Forbidden Palace. So they taught there for a number of years. And they taught various people bits of the Tai Chi, so they all became wonderful masters, but they still kept stuff hidden. So when the empire fell around 1909, no one wanted unbeatable martial arts skills anymore. But because Tai Chi masters were still martially efficable into their 90s and still living and vital into their 80s and 90s, and the average age of death was 26 in China at that time, the elites started paying Yang Lu Chan was gone by then, but his family and other masters metric shit tons of gold every month to teach him the secrets.
So it was the longevity they were becoming more interested in.
And the health and vitality, because we don't age like other people. We remain vital and all the other stuff. For martial arts is great, but remaining in full health throughout your life is where it's at. So, and this is what we found in the West, because it started dripping out into the West. Then people started practicing it for health and just think it's a Tai Chi form. They're moving around slowly. Whereas the Tai Chi form is actually, you have to go through years of training to be able to recreate your body. We call it creating the Tai Chi beast or a Tai Chi entity, the Tai Chi creature. So we run on a different engine to everyone else. So we have to tear our body apart and rebuild it as a different thing.
Wow, I didn't know any of this. This is incredible.
Yeah. So my teacher, eventually, he started coming to me for lessons because I got to study with Chan Shaolin. He was adopted by the middle son of Yang Lu Chan to be the Yang style gatekeeper. No one ever got through him to the family. If you lose face, you have to give up your school and all your gold and all the other things. No one ever bet him. And I got to study with his son's disciple and his grandson.
What an honour.
Yeah, but again, the fates have led me to that. So my Tai Chi skills went way up all of a sudden. And I continued on from there. So now, because the Yang family I never shared everything, and the Chans won't share everything still, a friend of mine, he's also traveled the world like I have, trying to find the best in the world to study with. And so I took up Tai Chi to get well and never expected to be a world-class martial artist and all the rest that's come with it. And my friend, he wanted to learn how to meditate, but he couldn't sit still, so he took up Tai Chi, hoping to do that. Then he ended up getting sucked into it and traveling the world and finding the best. But he was training in a park in Taipei one day, and some old Chinese dude came up to him and went, "Well, that's very good, but do you want me to save you 30 years of practice?" And he's like, "What the hell?" And Master Lai, his family were a warlord family. They were friends with the Yang brothers, but had all the power and all the money. And they paid them for all the secrets.
Ooh.
Like for one Nei Gong set I've got, it takes 4.5 minutes to do. They paid him a house.
Wow.
Yeah. Yang Chenfu was driving around Shanghai in a Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost in 1935, and the roads wouldn't handle it. That's how much these people were earning because of it. So my friend started studying with Master Lai and got the secrets which had been hidden to everybody. The Yang family themselves don't have this stuff now. They've lost it due to the dissolution of things. So I started studying that a few years ago, and I was pretty good to start with, and now my skills have gone way beyond everybody. It's crazy. There's still some people better in the world than me, but there aren't that many out of 100 million people who practice Tai Chi every day.
That's pretty incredible.
It is to go from, as I say, a cripple who wants to get better to where I've got now. You know, I really recently had a multiple times world champion martial artist come to me who's 4 times world champion in 2 martial arts, younger than me, same size as me and more muscly than me. And I got him to punch me, and I made him stick to my hand and dragged him around by my open hand and made his legs collapse under him while sat in a chair with my fingertips. And I sent him across my living room floor by holding a pen and sent energy through a pen without moving, and moved him out across my floor.
I'd have loved to have seen his face.
Yeah, he was quite surprised. He really was. It was a bit, unfortunately, when he was going out, because he did a lot of kicking and stuff, I went, it'd be worse if you try and kick me because I'll just knock you straight down. And then only afterwards did I find out he was multiple times world martial arts champion. So I felt a bit guilty, really. But yeah, it was an interesting take on how far I've come.
Yeah, for sure.
But the secrets are secrets. So the stuff I'm doing now is Tai Chi and Taoist internal alchemy, essentially.
What on earth is that? What is Taoist internal alchemy?
Physically, it's the stuff that transmutes life force, gives you more life force, makes you several times more powerful than regular humans.
Okay.
And at the highest level, it connects you with spirit, it connects you with God, it connects you with the isness. But it's a path not many people get to follow.
No, I wouldn't imagine so, because I would imagine, certainly in the West, and, talking from my limited experience, most people see it as a class you go to within a gym or a sports hall or some community centre once a week, and you practice gentle movements.
Yes. No.
And they don't see it as any more than that.
Absolutely not. So practicing real Tai Chi is... it's like climbing up a very, very steep mountain with an incredibly heavy bag full of stones on your back.
That doesn't sound like a lot of fun.
No, it's so hard. The training is so hard, but it gives you superior results.
Yeah.
You know? But any level of Tai Chi makes life better for everyone. You know, as I say, it's been my fate. There's no way I should have got these secrets here if not. So I don't know of anybody in the country who can do what I can do now. If you touch me, you float. If you touch any part of my body, your feet just start to peel up and roll backwards and you'll float away. I can send energy out of any part of my body and send you out. I can send energy for inanimate objects. I can make you stick to my open hands. You can't get away, like you're magnetized to me.
Those are phenomenal skills that you just wouldn't associate, the layperson wouldn't associate with the martial art. They'd be thinking more of the sort of Derren Brown and,
yes.
almost towards the magical, because it's such...
Certainly. And that's what they say about real Tai Chi. If you see it applied, it either looks fake or like magic. But yeah, I can do all the things you see in the Kung Fu movies that people don't believe. Kicks and punches bounce off me. Even if you touch the top of my head, you start to float away like this. But the same thing makes you bounce. Thank you.
You are a remarkable human, Rich.
I made that world champion's feet leave the floor by just pressing on 2 fingers. Pinged him up into the sky. Mark should have been there, this podcast editor recording you. That would have been one for posterity. That would have been wonderful. But yeah, so I've got 2 routes now because I'm here to help people. That is my role in life. So nowadays I help business owners generally, but lots of other people, I've helped Olympians and world champions and other elite sports people, all sorts of people to either function at a higher level, function in the 1%, fix their brokenness, or be happier and healthier with my secrets. So what I started doing a few years ago was taking the secrets, because if you go with a proper Tai Chi route, you get these benefits. But it's a long process.
Yeah, of course.
So this is why I started creating programs like my Instant Energy, which you've done, in fact.
I have.
That works in real time to give you instant energy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Instant calm, deals with stress and anxiety in real time. You start to feel better within the hour, or my upgrade or ultra upgrade programs. They're all designed from the secrets to make people's lives better. Because especially as people get into middle age, you get an idea when they should start to decline, but that shouldn't be the case. In fact, I was talking to one of my older clients today. My husband's of the opinion that he'd just gently go, even though he's younger than her and stuff. But she'd just been to Go Ape and done 2 hours climbing around in trees because she's always wanted to do it.
And she's just like, nope, that's not going to happen.
No. And no one needs to go as far as I've gone. But having some of it makes your life a hell of a lot better, mentally and physically. So you can go through life more effectively, happier and healthier. Not rely on drugs, not relying going with doctors and stuff. I went to my doctors for I was there every week when I was ill, but I went a few years back because I damaged one of my tendons and training, and I knew what I'd done. And when I went in, he said, "What's wrong with you? You never come to the doctors." And I went, that's exactly the point.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah, don't need to.
So I don't come to
This is just an incidental injury.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I was there.
Which is fabulous.
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked with other people on this podcast about how the NHS most definitely has its place.
Oh, certainly.
But, my stock phrase is, if my appendix bursts sitting here right now, I want an anaesthetist and I want a surgeon pretty quickly. Thank you very much. But for dealing with things that are more chronic, like you said, the antidepressants did nothing.
Nope, it's made me worse. I found myself standing in a pasty shop singing. I'm like, who's singing? I looked around, it was me. But I'm like, what's going on?
And that's not good for your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health at all, is it?
No, absolutely not. And in another case, I took some of the antidepressants they gave me. I had to write an essay at uni. I couldn't get up. I crawled to the toilet. I had to bring some friends up because it needed to be in. I had to write it out that day. I'd already done it in rough. Talking about scribes, I had to get 2 friends to come round and pay them to write it out for me because I couldn't get up off the floor.
Madness. So I liken that to being a sticking plaster stuck over the problem, which clearly didn't work in your case.
No.
And is nothing to do with the root cause of the problem. It's just something to mask the symptoms and hopefully allow you to carry on.
Yeah.
But something like you're doing now, and if you tell us about a couple of specific examples, I think that would be wonderful.
Sure.
It's helping people with no medications. It's helping them to improve their immediate quality of life, whether that be through energy levels or just movement, because the human body is meant to move, isn't it?
Yep.
And longevity.
Exactly. As the old saying goes, the mind benefits from stillness and the body benefits from movement. But in the West, we've got it all the wrong way around.
Haven't we? I've never heard that before.
There's an old Chinese saying.
Yeah.
There are many of them, but yes. Yeah, completely. So so I've been blessed to be able to help various people, and I've been with many occasions have said, Richard, thank you for giving me my life back. And it don't get much better than that. Yeah. So a couple of stories, let's see. So one, this is a problem again with the NHS. In partnership with Huddersfield University, ran the UK's first stroke rehabilitation study. Now other ones have been done, but that's mainly people of 6 months to 2 years previously have had strokes. Mm-hmm. But the people who came on my study had a stroke a couple of weeks previously, just out of hospital. And we ran it at Pinderfield's local hospital to me, and we ran it for a year, which meant people came in for 3 months at a time with me, did 2 classes a week, and we did home study, and I provided them with videos and written materials and stuff. Then we had a control group as well. And one lady, because unfortunately I'd worked out what to do beforehand, before meeting the people. I'd met the odd person with stroke, but I didn't know the variety of issues people might have. So and we couldn't change anything, but I had to repattern their motor movement. So initially my remit was to stop them falling over.
Yes, fundamental.
Get rid of a low mood and stop them falling. So it costs hundreds of millions a year for that. One lady, Rose, she couldn't feel 3/4 of her leg. She didn't go out into a garden, and she lived for her garden. She's an older retired lady. After about 5 weeks, she went, Richard, thank you for giving my life back. I got into my garden. First time ever. Another lady, Sonia, she was a seamstress, and she loved to sew, and she couldn't. After 8 weeks, she came in and Rich, I did some sewing. I sewed like a 6-year-old, but I sewed something.
Oh, those are life-changing experiences, life-enhancing.
Yeah. And there were many more people in that study. At the end of it, not one of the people I'd taught had a fall. None of them had suffered from low mood to a great degree. The control group had falls. And when they do the tests afterwards, the number of tests they can do for balance and stuff, the people who I taught did twice as well as the NHS protocol people. But it took us 3 years to get that study going. And that was just a feasibility study.
All right.
Did anyone leap on board? No. It had been another 5 years to get into 2 hospitals, I was told. And we gave up on it. I was like, I can't waste any more time, just trying and banging my head against this wall to get you to take this on board. It's ridiculous.
That is so wrong when such an obvious benefit was shown.
Yes, certainly so. But there you go.
And in the quality of life as well.
Yes.
That's to me, one of the main qualities of health.
Yeah. So while we're talking about strokes, Michael Griffiths, who's I know via the internet and various groups of him and stuff. In 2020, Michael had a stroke when he was 30 years old. He got 2 young kids trying to run a business. And he mentioned it. So I got in touch with him. I said, Michael, I want to help you. And he's very dubious because the doctors had told him that he was stuck like that forever. Now, I never asked him, I knew his voice, he was a bit slurry. I know he couldn't stand up properly, but later I asked him what percentage he found himself to be of his old self when I first met him. And he said, Rich, I was at 20% of my former self when I met you. So his right side was completely gone. He was going around his house on crutches. He was falling down all the time. And he couldn't do anything with his kids and stuff. And I'm the world's proudest dad. My dad was awful. So when I became a dad, I resolved to bring my son Gabriel up as best I could and become the best dad in the world. And a million people have told me I'm the best dad in the world since then, including Gabriel. In fact, when I was in America, when we used to live in a very rich place, a lady who lived near us came down one day and went, I've been watching you for the last 10 years. You don't know me, but I want to tell you, you're the world's best dad.
Oh, how lovely.
My heart melted and stuff. But anyway, so like Michael's a dad, I really wanted to help him. After a few months, he wrote me a lovely testimonial going, I can play with my kids again. I can be a dad fully. It's helped me in my business. Rich is a genius. This is wonderful, blah, blah. And I thought, that's great. And we carried on working together, just intimately, just once a month, and I'd give him the materials. And after about 7 months, he got in touch with me and went, Rich, I've been watching my bike rusting outside for 2 years now. And I used to use that for my mental health. I love riding my bike. I've been out and ridden my bike today.
Wow.
And he'd been at 20% with his right side completely gone. I'm like, wow, that's fucking amazing. I'm so proud of you. So a few months later, after we'd stopped working together, I was really proud of him because I saw him, because I knew what state he used to be in. He was like doing a live video while walking along, talking to his phone with no stick, no crutches, nothing. And I got in touch and I'm like, Michael, that's so fucking cool. And this is when I asked him.
Yeah.
I said, what do you think you are now? He said, Rich, I'm at 90% of my former self. Did me another testimonial saying how wonderful I am, etc., and how everybody should work with me. But then he got in touch with me about 4 months ago to tell me. So anyway, he told me that day he was going to a kickboxing class. And he got in touch a few months ago to tell me he just got silver medal in a kickboxing competition.
That is a fantastic tale.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's serious power in what you do.
Oh, yeah. Seriously, it's not just serious power of being like knock you over with a little finger or anything, but to heal as well.
Yeah.
So another kid, Leo, hang on a sec. So Leo first came to one of my public classes when I still taught Tai Chi. And he was in a wheelchair when his parents brought him in, and he had to come into class in his wheelchair, and he could get up, and his parents would be with him, and sometimes a physio. And they'd have to stop and do some remedial massage on him, and they'd have to translate stuff, and I couldn't understand a word he said. And Leo, when he was, this was 24 it was 20, when he was 20, this is 4 years later, when he was 20, he had a motorbike accident, got brain damage, hit some black ice. And he'd suffered brain damage, and he'd been stuck in a wheelchair for the majority of the time since. So Leo and I worked together, first in class, and he started coming for private lessons. And over time, he could stand up for longer. And then his speech got more intelligible. And one day he just came walking into class without his wheelchair. I'm like, what? And then I'd forgotten about that. And like, we were talking some months later, and he went, I was on about how I'd end up in a wheelchair. And he went, Richard, don't you remember when I was in a wheelchair? I'd been in that wheelchair for 4 years. You've given me my life back. Incredible. And then Leo, it wasn't a very good song, but Leo recorded a single. And then he joined a football team for people with brain injuries. Wow. We worked together on and off for 2 years, and I still see him knocking around the gym sometimes, but he just has, one of his parents had come in and sit down because he didn't need to be here anymore, and he learnt Tai Chi forms and trained with everybody, and that's a greater degree I could do. I gave Leo his life back again.
That's just remarkable.
Thanks.
So that's kind of one group of people that have suffered injuries of one form or another. Mm-hmm. What other groups of people? You mentioned something about coaching. How on earth does Tai Chi fit in with business coaching people?
Well, I don't really coach people. I just help them to be better. Most people put too much into their business and not enough into themselves, and they're the engine of their business. And I find a lot of people, especially in middle age, have become quite successful. A lot of people I work with now, but they've done nothing for themselves. You know, even actually I'm working with a guy at the moment, he's only 32 and he was almost a professional footballer. But he damaged his SI joint, lifting incorrectly. And unfortunately, his posture's so bad, so he's got forward head posture, then he tilts backwards like most men. So the strain from the head going forward, because the load doubles for every inch of variance, so the head going forward, so that was affecting his lower back. Like many leans backwards, so that's impinging on his lower back. His lower back's held, and it's weak glutes, etc., and stuff, and tension here and there. So his posture was actually holding him back from being able to heal himself. So we're having to rebuild his posture. That's just a guy in his 30s because he hadn't looked after himself for a while. And you just find it again and again. So people become more effective. From simply working with a marketer. She lives in Europe, and she had terrible back problems. And she thought it was an intractable problem. She'd been to the doctors who weren't fixing it. Once I assessed her, it's the working posture, the way she sits. Right. As she focuses on the work, she dives in. Her chair was set up all wrong. And, you know, because people aren't sitting properly. They're not utilizing their body's natural, like your superficial back line of your fascia helps you to remain upright. So simply by getting her to raise her chair up, putting her feet properly on the floor, changing the angle so she's got support from her thighs, her buttocks and her feet. And then the more uprightness, just moving into the edge of her chair to some degree. That's changed everything. She's now like, She had to take painkillers for headaches she was getting with it all. We've done other stuff, but by changing her posture, she is able to work for longer and more effectively, and took one painkiller. She was taking them every day. She took one in a month. But she couldn't see it and just thought it was age getting it to her, and she's only in her early 40s. And again, it was just because she doesn't think about her body. She lives in her head. So,
interesting. So you're getting people to think more widely.
And giving them the keys to doing it, because everyone's posture's off, and your posture's so important for everything else. Then I teach them how to have long-term energy, short-term energy, or instant energy. Teach them how to deal with the stress and anxiety they suffer, because a lot of business owners constantly get stuck in their mind and worrying about money, even if they're doing very well. It's a concern for people. So I teach them how to be calmer, more resilient. I teach them how to be more energetic, and how to boost their health with my practice as well. So they don't constantly suffer from colds and flus and all the other things that get in the way. Because one of the other big problems, back to being the world's proudest dad and stuff, is that a lot of people want to be there for their kids, but they can't physically do that. So a guy was a vice president of a company, very successful in America. But when he came home, he just wanted to crawl into bed or lay on the side or hide.
Because he'd given enough of himself.
Yeah, he didn't have the energy. But his kids were so well taken care of financially, everything they could ever want. But they couldn't have the dad. And that's what they need when they're young.
Yeah, that's the biggest loss, isn't it?
Yeah, so I give people their lives back in many ways because life shouldn't be as it is for most people. But they just wait until something bad happens and go to a doctor's. Yeah. Go help me. And because we've been trained to take something rather than do something, then this is how you find it. Very, very efficient in business, not in the other ways, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So there's a very ill-proportioned work-life balance there.
Certainly.
That's having all the knock-on effects.
Yeah, yeah.
And who knows how that's going to affect the children of these people as well, and the children's children, etc.
Completely, and the significant others as well, because they're not there for their partners.
No, that's true, yeah.
They're just not there for anybody because they've put so much work into work for so many years. That's what defines them also. So they don't do anything else. They don't have the capabilities and capacities anymore, which, you know. But other people have helped. Like, you know, I recently worked with, Chris Cook, this British Olympic swimmer, multiple gold medal winner for England and stuff, went to the Olympics twice. Chris came to me because he'd been trying to work out a back problem he developed after he stopped swimming. And that was so bad that, he was driving, he had to stop the car and do stuff. And he had to work lying down sometimes. And then he couldn't lie down because he was uncomfortable. And he was just stuck with his back issue that wasn't solvable. So because I have a deep understanding of the human body and various practices that other people don't have, I was able to help him. And again, he's a proud parent and a business owner. So I've helped Chris to be happier, healthier, and more effective in what he can do now.
And that is the true definition of wealth to me. If you are happy, you're healthy, and you're effective.
Yeah, certainly.
That is being wealthy, because that's all about contentment in your life and your well-being.
Yep.
And then you're giving the best of yourself as well, aren't you?
Yes, because you've got that to give.
Yeah.
And you've got reserves, which most people don't have after a certain age. But it doesn't have to be like that. Master Ma Yuliang, who passed away a couple of years ago, when he was 94, he was still doing demos monthly where people would come in and throw people around.
It just sounds bizarre, but,
you see him doing
fabulous.
You see him doing the Tai Chi fast form. Because there are fast forms in Tai Chi. It's not all just slow.
Okay.
The slow stuff to train the interior of a body and run the energy to run the system,
I know, because you very kindly, twice now I've experienced some of your sessions at Nampanton Hall.
Oh, yeah.
And knowing enough of your story, and when I'm watching you doing, you are so graceful.
Thank you.
And fluid in your movements. And I think there's obviously a magic and a dedication that's gone into getting you from where you were to where you are now. And that's absolutely to be applauded.
Thank you. Yeah, you got to see it in real life.
Yeah.
Rather than me just wobbling on about it. But we had Tony Underwood there, and Tony's a British Lions rugby player and British team player. He doesn't play rugby now, but he's in phenomenal shape, as you see. And I had Tony pushing on my hand as hard as he could. Then I started hopping up and down, hopped to the side of him while he's pushing on my hand, which is in space. And Tony couldn't explain that.
Yes, you do have that ability to blow people's minds.
Yes, on many levels, in many ways, generally.
Oh, that's fabulous. So is there anything else that you are dying to say?
I think that, if people want to take up Tai Chi, that's great. I really recommend they do, but they search around for a good Tai Chi instructor because it can really help and transform your life. But on the different tip, people in middle age shouldn't take for granted that it's just a downhill decline. I'm 55 now and I feel 30 and I look 40.
You certainly don't look 55.
No, nor do I feel it.
Well, that's the important bit.
I was just at a musical festival, and I'm usually with a lot more of my friends there, and I was with one of my friends, so I get caught up in this all that, but I like to have a good old dance and stuff. And I had a friend with me who's an ultra marathon runner, and we worked out I'd dance the equivalent of 2 marathons in 2 days.
Go you. Go you. Wow.
Yeah, so don't give up. Find something. Look after your health, and you'll be rewarded by that.
I love that. I think that's a perfect place to finish this. Okay. Thank you so much, Rich. I've learned so much more about what you do.
Thank you,
so
Debs.
grateful.
It's my pleasure. I'm glad I could talk to you. Thanks for inviting me in.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Thanks.